Yo, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to the NBA Strategy Show presented by SuperDraft. I'm Dave Loughran. With me, Adam Scherer, 5-game NBA slate, breaking it all down for you right here on the best free content you're going to get in DFS sports. It's Awesemo.com. Adam, little League of Legends win here, huh?
Yeah, nice change of pace from all the losing I've been doing lately.
You're playing probably, what are you playing? Golf? League of Legends, baseball, basketball. I'm assuming you get into UFC action as well. You playing NASCAR too?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So,
MMA has actually been my best sport over the last month.
You're the next Alex Baker, man.
Yeah, coming for number one. I told him the other day we needed to change the site name.
Coming in hot. Shipmymoney.com. Glad to have everybody with us. Glad to be with you. We've got 5 games to break down here. Some really interesting ones at that. I'm quite a big fan of this slate. While researching it, came across some interesting nuggets that might not play at all, might mean nothing. But now we're about a week into this into the restart, and we're starting to get some idea of how things look. We're starting to see everything take shape, at least a little bit, for the teams that haven't been dealing with a handful of injuries like the Denver Nuggets. We've got 5 games, like I said, Adam. Let's kick it off with Miami and Milwaukee. But before we do, last night, and any NBA or MLB luck?
No, hell no.
No?
No.
Okay.
Had a top 6 in NHL, but that wasn't enough to make me money overall either. So.
Oh yeah, NHL. You've been playing that too.
Yeah.
You're getting in on everything. I wanted to actually pull something up here, but my fantasy cruncher just froze, so probably not important. Actually, 1 second here. Go a little lineup study. Yeah, I was saying to you beforehand, the whole, I know we're talking basketball, but the whole Lance McCullers absolute meltdown. I didn't play him, but I had bet Houston. Really liked Houston yesterday. You know, when a team puts up 6 runs in the first 5 innings and loses by 7 runs, that's when you know you're running bad. But yeah, anyway, let me pull. Okay, so we had the $20 shoot around, $600,000. I believe $150,000 the first place.
Speaking of running bad, I bubbled my best NBA lineup bubbled last night because Brad Wanamaker outscored Jason Tatum.
Yeah, that's not good.
And Karis LeVert.
So, okay, Jaduk played 3 lineups, cashed 2 of them. One of them was first place, $150,000. Whew. He had Mike Conley. Let me make sure I'm even on the right slate. Very good chance I'm not. Did you, by the way, while I look this up, Thomas Bryant might end up being a very good player.
I think he's clearly a top 3 center in the league.
I see what you did there. Mike Conley, Donovan Mitchell, Michael Porter Jr., Royce. Look at this, dude. Royce O'Neal, Rudy Gobert, Derek White, Troy Brown, Thomas Bryant. Four Jazz players in the same lineup took down $150K. What do you think?
Yeah, that was a really weird first game. Obviously, just a ton of scoring from Utah across the board, but they were also low owned with the exception of Conley, I think. Yeah,
very, very strange. When Thomas Bryant had another very big game, Conley, Mitchell, they didn't even have that big of games. Royce O'Neal had 32, Rudy Gobert had 53. What a strange winning lineup that is. I've got to tell you, that is not something I would expect to see. Let's jump into the actual games today because that's what we're all here to talk about. Miami and Milwaukee. The Miami Heat are going to be without Jimmy Butler. Goran Dragic is questionable, which is pretty big news here. We'll start with Miami. They're 9-point dogs right now, going up against a Mike Budenholzer coached Milwaukee team that sat Giannis and Middleton in the second half of that, lost to the Brooklyn Nets. Told you that could happen. I'd said it many times. Very good chance Budenholzer just throws in the towel, says, who cares about this game? We got it locked up. And that's something we got to pay attention to going forward. They're 9-point. Miami's a 9-point dog today, 222 total. And Dragic is also questionable. But what makes this one interesting is Goran Dragic in this restart, in the bubble, having played 3 games, has been very good. He leads the team with a 28.3% usage rate, or 28% usage rate. 28.3% usage rate and 28% usage rate on the season when Butler's out, 1.14 fantasy points per minute. If he plays today, this could be another spot where we go to Goran Dragic, and Milwaukee is playing since this started at the fastest pace in the league. Miami's playing at the slowest pace, so it's clearly a huge pace-up spot for the Miami Heat.
Yeah, I think that this is a spot where you're going to get a lot of value because Butler being out obviously takes so much usage out of the equation. It also takes some rebounding and assists out. Dragic, if he's out, that's even more usage. But if he's in, he's inexpensive. Kendrick Nunn is inexpensive. Tyler Hero is still inexpensive. And you look at the last game they played against Boston without Butler, you got about 28 minutes from Dragic. You got 22 minutes from Tyler Hero. He's certainly someone that could potentially play a little bit more, in any given game. You got only 16 minutes from Kendrick Nunn, which obviously was a little bit surprising. But there's just so many guards that are capable of scoring, and they're all pretty cheap in a pace-up spot.
Yeah, 28.3 minutes for Dragic off the bench. It's probably around where you have to put him, but he's really operating with heavy usage. I think his assist rate is only set to climb. 3 assists in a case like this is something that I would expect to increase for Goran Dragic. So at 5,000 on DraftKings specifically, this is a very good spot. We know that Butler is already out. What about somebody like Tyler Hero, another one of those guards that is cheap and has some potential, but he's pretty reliant on scoring, almost entirely reliant on scoring?
I think at his price point, he's still a good value. It's definitely someone that I'd be kind of cautious about the ownership with because, like I mentioned, he still only played 21.9 minutes against Boston. He shot really well in the second quarter, but didn't really do anything in the second half. Certainly could see him get more minutes if he shoots well throughout the game. But anytime you're getting a scoring dependent player that's probably playing somewhere around 22 minutes, it obviously can go south really quickly. But at 3,600, Hero without Butler on the floor this year has averaged 0.88 DraftKings points per minute. He has a 25% usage rate. If Dragic sits, that obviously opens up even more minutes for him and for Kendrick Nunn. It's definitely the type of play where if it lets you get to some really, top end talent, there's really nothing but upside at 3,600 for Hero.
Goran Dragic's averaging 10.3 potential assists per game in the bubble. Kelly Olynyk's a really interesting one here. He had 12 potential assists last game, which is pretty miraculous. Usage rate is around 21%. He's getting pretty sizable minutes. Everything about Kelly Olynyk just leads me to think this will be the day where I roster him everywhere and he ends up doing nothing. His effective field goal percentage is 66%. He's played 30 plus minutes in back-to-back games. He's assisting at a 25% clip, 10.5% rebound rate. These are numbers that they just seem entirely unsustainable, but here we are, and here's Eric Spoelstra continuing to give him a sizable helping of minutes every day. And I think so long as he continues to play decent basketball, it continues. I hate guessing on Kelly Olynyk. It makes me miserable.
Olynyk's one of my least favorite DFS guys to have to consider because normally when you're in a lot of situations when you talk about guys that are in and out of the rotation like Olynyk is, they're not really productive players, and that's why they're in and out of the rotation. But Kelly Olynyk, without Jimmy Butler on the floor this year, has averaged 0.94 DraftKings points per minute. He rebounds, he gets assists. He has a 13.8% assist percentage without Butler. He's a productive player when he's in there. So you're basically just guessing at, is Eric Spoelstra going to get pissed off at Kelly Olynyk today and take him out? It's not, you don't really have that path with him where, maybe he'll play 30 minutes, but he'll probably only get 20 points anyway. Like he produces at a high rate to where if he does play the minutes that everyone's expecting, he's someone you're going to want in your lineup. So it's always really scary to fade him when there's when the expectation is that he plays a lot of minutes. Yeah.
Do we have ownership updated for NBA yet? Let me see here. The 1:30 game isn't on DraftKings or FanDuel, by the way, for anybody wondering.
Olynyk, second highest owned on DraftKings right now at 43%.
There you go. Second highest owned, 43% ownership at 4,800. Does that change your opinion, though, knowing what we do know about Kelly Olynyk? I know he's played really well, but with that ownership, does that change your opinion at all?
I think normally once he's at 4,800, which is still cheap, but it at least is at a price point where there's going to be a lot of options around him that have similar ranges of outcomes. So typically what ends up happening for me there is I'll end up getting around like 50% if he does project as like the top value. Like I know that's across 150 lineups, I would have come in with about 55%. Brandon Clark yesterday, for example. And I think it's kind of similar. The thing about basketball is that, obviously, and we talk about it a lot, you don't have to just pivot off of the most popular plays. You can take stands in a lot of different places. You only need one or two in your lineup. So I think that, Olynyk being 40% owned makes sense. It's not an ownership percentage that I look at it and I'm just like, what is everyone doing? It's not Brad Wanamaker at 25% last night, which was just absolutely insane. I think it's an ownership that makes a lot of sense. It's not one that I'm looking to definitely be way under, but it's high enough where I think there are going to be pivots that are pretty good at that price point.
The reason I ask is because Kelly Olynyk is somebody that, when very popular, is not. It's a different scenario than earlier in the year. There's no question about that, where Myers Leonard was actually getting minutes, and Kelly Olynyk was at the mercy of Eric Spoelstra off the bench. If he'd come out and missed three-point attempts in a row, what you would generally see is he would be out of there. We saw it a lot, and then you fade him and he has huge games. So I get the ownership, as you're saying, but I definitely think if there is one spot you're trying to be different, 40+% Kelly Olynyk is not getting away from that. It's not the craziest idea. Someone in chat mentioned if he's chalk and he goes for 40 and you don't have him, you're done. Sure. But the likelihood that we get another 40 spot from Kelly Olynyk, I don't know how high that is. Again, you just consider some of the numbers here, right? Like his, I already mentioned his effective field goal percentage. It's through the roof. If you look at his true shooting percentage, you have Olynyk at 68.4%, 25% assists. And I know we can take Butler off the floor and we can draw some conclusions from that as well. But the simple point is that there are some things that Kelly Olynyk is doing right now that are nowhere close to what he does for his career or on the season. So something to keep in mind. What are your thoughts on Bam Adebayo here? $7,700.
Yeah, I mean, Bam without Butler, you should get more assist opportunities for him as well. He's averaged 1.25 DraftKings points per minute without Butler out there this year. So I think that the salary looks really, really good for him. Fast-paced game plays to his strengths as well because he does so much. He's not a true center as far as, lumbering up and down the floor or anything. So I think Bam looks like a really good option. The only thing that kind of sucks is that he's only center eligible on DraftKings, but even so, if you're expecting around, 33, 34 minutes from him, he played 31.7 in each of the last two games, actually. But if you're expecting somewhere in that range at 1.25 fantasy points per minute, I think he looks like a really good option.
Do you have any other interest in Miami? And keep in mind, if Goran Dragic does not play, that's going to change a lot, right? Because he's getting 23 minutes. Not only has he been playing around 28 minutes, but Butler would be off too. And Goran Dragic leads the team in usage over the last 3 games. He's been very involved. As somebody that's been injured a lot of the season and clearly playing hobbled at points, there might be an argument there that Goran Dragic is just the healthiest he's been all year. And this 4+ month hiatus has actually helped him a lot. With Butler and Dragic off the floor this season, Adebayo has a 28.6% usage rate. Duncan Robinson, that is wrong. Let me go back. I only had these certain dates filtered. So since the start of the year, let's do this again. Leading usage rate is Kendrick Nunn. No, it is Tyler Hero at 24.7%, 231 minutes. Kendrick Nunn at 24%. He's averaging 1.03 fantasy points per minute. Hero 0.88. And then Bam is at 22.2, but 1.24 DraftKings points per minute. This is with Butler and Goran Dragic off the floor. So I suppose I could take Winslow off, but that's not going to make any bit of difference. Does anybody else here on Miami? It's a team we have to cover a lot on today, especially given two factors. One, Milwaukee is playing at the league's fastest pace. That's now, and even before the bubble started, they were one of the fastest teams in the league. And I don't know if Budenholzer is going to rest half of his guys in the second half and open things up even more so for this Heat squad.
Yeah, I think that Andre Iguodala is probably not someone we've mentioned ever this season, but he's only 3,300 on DraftKings, and he played 30.8 minutes, closed the last game against Boston without Butler. So not the most productive player, but still can get you around 3/4 of a fantasy point per minute. And he's close to minimum salary. So I think that's a pretty good point per dollar value. Not the highest ceiling in the world, obviously. As far as the backcourt goes, we talked about Tyler Hero. Right now we have Kendrick Nunn projected for 10% ownership on DraftKings at 4,100. I'd be kind of surprised if he gets ownership. I mean, I guess it is only a 5-game slate, but he's coming off of 16 and a half minutes last game and 15.7 minutes the game before that, where he did deal with some foul trouble. If the ownership on him is low, it is the kind of play that I like taking a shot on in tournaments because he's averaged almost 30 minutes per game this season. There's nothing substantially different about this Miami team other than Jimmy Butler not playing today. So I have no reason to think that if Kendrick Nunn actually plays well, that he can play a bunch of minutes. He's, for the season, averaged 0.91 DraftKings points per minute without Butler on the floor. So it's obviously a really low floor play for someone that hasn't touched 20 minutes in either of his last 2 games. But when you look at the season as a whole and don't just exclusively focus on what's happened in Orlando, he's been one of the primary producers for Miami.
By the way, we went out of order with these 2 4:00 games here. So we'll go straight back to the Indy Phoenix one after this. I'm using the DraftKings DFS schedule, which is a little bit different. So on the Milwaukee side, Giannis and Chris Middleton did not play the second half. They dropped that game to Brooklyn, but it doesn't mean anything because they're already locked into that one spot. Robin Lopez started in place of Brook Lopez, who's questionable, fouled out in 20 minutes. And then Bledsoe played a little bit in the third quarter, but my assumption is Budenholzer just wanted to get his legs going a little bit. Had this been a spot where Bledsoe had played every game so far, he probably wouldn't have started the third quarter either. But Giannis is averaging 2.17 DraftKings points per minute since jumping back into this restart. He's an absolute dominant monster, fantasy-wise and just in general. Do you have concerns that we're going to see the same thing happen today? And if we don't, do you see him playing more than 31 or so minutes?
I don't know if I would say concern is the right word. I don't think it's the most likely outcome that they just keep resting him in the second half. It's certainly a possibility. And I think that there's a higher possibility that you kind of just see shortened rotations and, maybe 28 minutes instead of 32 or 33. I think that the problem with trying to guess at that is that everyone has the same concerns. I'm sure if you watch a bunch of shows today or read a bunch of articles, every single person is going to mention that we have no idea what Budenholzer's plan is for minutes. You look at the last slate where obviously, Giannis only played 16 minutes, but he was 3% owned because everybody was so concerned. If right now we have him in 19%, but if the field in general is going to just shy away from the best fantasy point per minute guy in the world because they don't know what's going to happen, I like being on the other side and hoping and embracing the uncertainty and trying to get, low ownership on the best fantasy player. So there is a ton of uncertainty. I wouldn't go there in cash games. You can go to guys that produce at a similar rate and have a lot better or a lot tighter window of minutes in the range of outcomes. But in tournaments, if people are going to shy away from Giannis, I will still go there because it's Giannis and because I don't really know what to expect.
I agree with your premise entirely, but the fact that right now Luka at almost the exact same price is getting less ownership than Giannis makes me feel like I can get away from Giannis easier without having to worry about that. I
agree with that.
I was certain Doncic would be getting. Wait till we get to that game. The numbers. Granted, they played 2 overtime games, but the numbers for Doncic are absolutely insane. So, I'd
be surprised if at lock those ownerships are where they are. Luka's coming off of an 83-point game, and Giannis is coming off of a 16-minute game.
That's why I'm saying I agree with your premise. If ownership shifts on this and Doncic is doubling up Giannis's ownership, then we have an entirely different conversation for sure. Right. But if Giannis is projected for more owners, let's just say lock comes and Giannis is projected for more ownership than Doncic, that makes it a little bit easier for me to make some different decisions there.
Yeah, just give me Luka then.
What about the rest of Milwaukee? We don't know what's going on with Brook Lopez. I will say again that Robin Lopez let a lot of people down for sure. Fouled out in that last game after playing only 20 minutes. So, take that into consideration. He is very cheap. Do you have interest in the rest of the Bucks?
Not really, no. Middleton, I think, is pretty fairly priced. If Brook Lopez plays, I think his price is pretty much where it should be. I don't think there's a lot of extra value there. Bledsoe, we don't really know what the minutes are going to look like. If you expect like 24 minutes from him, then there's at least some merit to, like a $5,200 price tag, but it's still not going to be a priority for me. And then everyone else kind of just falls off because Milwaukee has so many healthy players right now.
Okay. Yeah, pay attention to Brook Lopez and Goran Dragic. That's going to make a big difference. Fortunately, it's the first game that's going to lock on the slate, along with Indy and Phoenix. So you've got the Indiana Pacers and the Phoenix Suns, who, by the way, don't look now, but I think the Suns have won all 3 games since starting this.
I know they beat the Wizards.
They beat the Wizards. They beat the Clippers. They're playing pretty well. They really are. But in this one, they're only 2.5-point dogs, 229.5 total here inside Magic Kingdom or whatever it is. It's in Orlando. So Sabonis is out. He's nowhere, according to Nate McMillan, he's just nowhere close to returning. And Aaron Baines still out for Phoenix. Aside from that, let me back up. Kelly Oubre is also doubtful to play. And then you have Malcolm Brogdon, who's questionable. Batadze's questionable as well. So take that for what it's worth. But on the Indy side, the numbers on TJ Warren are really insane. 29% usage. His true shooting, Adam, is 77.3% in these 3 games, 1.52 fantasy points per minute. He's averaging 40 minutes per game and 4.3 stocks per game. Let's start with him because it's outrageous what he's doing right now and completely unsustainable. I just don't know how he can continue at this pace, making like 75%, or from a true shooting percentage, 77.3% is such an insane number.
Yeah, I mean, it's just the perfect example of you have years and years of TJ Warren playing basketball. Over a few games, sure, he can go crazy, but you shouldn't be changing the way you project him other than, giving him like 38 minutes because that's obviously what they're playing him. But his salary has adjusted to his recent performance. And, not saying he's going to get a ton of ownership because the salary has gone up, but, right now we only have him at 1%. But some people, game log watching is the thing. Some people will still think TJ Warren's a great play, even though the salary's gone up. I'm sure some people talk themselves onto the Phoenix narrative as well. It's just not a spot that I'm going to go to with any sort of regularity because I just think that he's basically priced for the way he's been performing as opposed to what he actually is as a player.
He is now $400 more expensive than Kawhi Leonard on FanDuel. So there's that, right? He's $100 less expensive than Nikola Jokic. He's more expensive than Porzingis, Kawhi Leonard, Devin Booker. You do what you want to do with this one, but it might be a good spot to get away from TJ Warren. And as you pointed out, it seems like that's what people are doing. Once you get priced up there, it's insane.
It's not like it was like a slight adjustment where he went from like 6,200 to 7K or something, right, up to a pretty ridiculous price point now.
And I get the notion that, well, hey, pay up to be contrarian. No, going to somebody like TJ Warren because nobody else is going there. Yeah, if I'm comparing him to the players around him, that's going to make it really difficult for me to get there. I do want to ask you about Victor Oladipo, though. He played 27 minutes last game, but I actually have no concerns about that at all. McMillan said he was going to go 28 to 32. He played 27. They had a very comfortable lead over Orlando. The Magic started making some inroads, but never caught up. And I think McMillan said, you know what, I'll just throw the other starters on the court and give Oladipo some rest. The encouraging point here is not only that he's 5,500 and facing the Phoenix Suns, but he played 27 minutes through 3 quarters, right? So it wasn't like he was limited throughout the entire game. He played 27 minutes through 3 quarters. So my assumption here is if this game's close, and it should be, he comes back, closes out the fourth, and gets himself around 32 or 33 minutes. That's the way I see this playing out. All he needs is that fourth quarter rotation, and you're talking about an entirely different game.
Yeah, I agree with you. One more thing to point out on Warren, I just pulled it up because obviously last game we had Brogdon and Oladipo in. Warren had a really big game, but he only had a 23.3% usage rate, which is much more in line with what
he's hitting every shot.
Yeah, he shot 13 for 17. But
that's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, the opportunities in that game are much more in line with what we expect from him. It's not like a whole lot changed. He had 2 rebounds. He had 3 assists. He went crazy with blocks and steals again. Took 17 shots. He's just normally not going to make 13 of them. So I'd be a little bit more concerned about not rostering him or not considering him if he had, once again had a 30% usage rate, but that wasn't the case as we would expect. As far as Oladipo goes, I'm with you. He played 32 minutes prior to the game that he missed. The minutes looked fine last game. I expect 32 to 33 if this one's competitive. He's only 5,500 in a good matchup against Phoenix.
Good price.
It's the opposite of TJ Warren. I mean, he's just priced through the floor right now. Like if Victor Oladipo lets you down at 5,500, you got pretty unlucky. There's definitely a better chance that Oladipo is someone you have to have in your lineup at 5,500 than someone that kills your lineup at that price.
By the way, Warren has a 56% true shooting percentage for his career. He's at 77.3 right now. Just want to kind of drive that point home. Yeah, maybe but I like Oladipo
the entire time in Orlando, and he's used to it.
Yeah, you might be right. Oladipo ownership is at 23.9% on DraftKings, so he's definitely not going to be overlooked. On FanDuel, you get him at 19%, 5,600. That's not bad. I think it's very solid here. I wish he produced more in terms of assists, but at 5,500, I'll take my chances that Oladipo is going to be the guy to rip off a 40-point game, and TJ Warren hits the back burner for a night. What about the point guard position? Malcolm Brogdon is currently questionable to play. He's played in both games though, and I didn't see him have any setbacks after playing 33 minutes against Orlando just 2 days ago. So I'm working on the assumption that he will be active today.
Yeah, that's my assumption as well. He's been listed with this injury before. He sat one game, played the next one. I assume he's good to go. If he's not, then you do get more usage for Warren. You get more production for Oladipo. But assuming he's in, I'm expecting another 32 to 34 minutes. His salary is starting to rise. It's coming from a point where he was just clearly mispriced. I mean, the guy was 50 to 60% owned. So it's not that he's overpriced now. He's just not the easiest play in the world. Like now, Oladipo is that guy. But Brogdon is still a good play in his own right.
Eric says he'd rather play Aaron Holiday than Oladipo if Brogdon sits. Yeah, I definitely wouldn't.
Nope.
At all. Aaron Holiday is, I don't know. I think we're completely ignoring the ceiling that Oladipo has because, he had a stretch of the season there where he came back from an injury, was super limited and wasn't at 100%. I'm not particularly worried about him now. And if he plays 33 minutes, 32 minutes, and Holiday plays 34, I'm going to take Oladipo all day long there. So
yeah, we only have 88 minutes with Oladipo on the floor, with Aaron Holiday and Oladipo on the floor. Aaron Holiday over those 88 minutes, though. So again, not the biggest sample size, but 11.5% usage percentage, 8.2% assist percentage.
What's his per minute fantasy points?
0.46 DraftKings.
Yeah. Now that'll probably come up.
Oladipo's rates, he has a 32.2% usage rate and a 26.3% assist percentage. Obviously, you don't want to take too much away from 88 minutes, but I think it points to the obvious assumption that Oladipo is the one dominating the ball there.
Yeah. And did you have Sabonis factored into that?
No, because it was only 88 minutes just with those two.
Yeah, I figured it wouldn't be a lot at all. But
Brogdon played 7 of them. Sabonis played 77. Warren played 57.
Okay. Give me Oladipo at $700 increase there all day long. Anything else for Indy if you want to talk Miles Turner or the front court, or we can move on to the Phoenix Suns?
Yeah, I still think Turner is at a pretty good price point. DeAndre Ayton's not someone that you're going to be too concerned about as far as defensive ability goes. You got 35 minutes from Turner last game against Orlando. So I think barring foul trouble, you should get somewhere in the 34-minute range for Turner. He's a productive player and his rates go up without Sabonis. So I do think he's a good value. I'd say he's my second. It's close between him and Brogdon. Oladipo is the clear one for me from Indiana.
Okay. So Devin Booker has been extremely good in this restart. 33.9% usage rate, 26% assist rate, averaging 1.35 DraftKings points per minute. It's been kind of interesting too, though, because when you look at touches per game, you go and tracking on NBA.com. It's super spread out. They're moving the ball a lot. Like Booker's averaging 60 touches per game, which is not a lot. Wait till you see what Doncic is at and Nikola Jokic. Rubio is around 70. They're both averaging north of 11 potential assists, though, and are pretty much dictating the flow of the Phoenix Suns offense. Where are you at on Devin Booker here, coming off that sick game-winning shot against the LA Clippers?
I think he's fine. I don't know. I like Booker a lot as far as the ceiling goes. He's just someone that I feel like I never get to in DFS as much as the field does. It's not a matchup I love against Indiana, but the opportunities will be there. The minutes have been there. He's coming off a game where he played over 37 minutes. He's going to shoot a lot. Kind of looking at guys in this price range. Porzingis is similarly priced. McCollum, I'd take Booker over McCollum. You have Paul George, who's less expensive. Kawhi is much more expensive. I think, obviously ignoring position, but Kawhi and George, I would prefer. I think it'll be, it's not like Booker's going to be in 60% of my lineups or something, because there's just so many guys in that price range that are good. But I think that there is plenty of upside for him at only 8,300.
Okay. Yeah, he's getting a little bit of ownership here. Kawhi Leonard getting a little bit more. Paul George getting a little more. They're kind of grouped. Paul George and Booker are pretty close. Kawhi Leonard right now is like top 7 on DraftKings, second highest projected ownership on FanDuel. So that will make things interesting in what should be a very high scoring game against the Dallas Mavericks. DeAndre Ayton was a chalk play last time out. His price has actually come down. He was a bit disappointing, though. Played 38 minutes. You give me 38 minutes from Ayton, you would really expect him to produce better numbers. That wasn't the case. No stocks whatsoever. Managed only 7 rebounds in that game, which to me was a little bit distressing, because he is somebody that is a very good rebounder. And, it's just one game. I get that. But Zubats ate him up on the boards. There's no question. Zubats dominated the boards in that game.
Nice call on that, by the way.
What'd you say?
I said nice call on Zubats.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, more foul trouble. He lost like 3 minutes to foul trouble in the first quarter, though. So I was wrong when I said I think he'd get 30, but he was on pace for 27. Anyway, DeAndre Ayton in that game had 15 rebound chances. So it's not like they aren't there, Adam. He just couldn't manage any of them with Zubats eating them up on the glass.
Yeah, I mean, the biggest takeaway for me is the playing time. He played 37 and a half minutes.
Huge.
Obviously, you're going to have some games that are disappointing, but Miles Turner is not a great rebounder anyway. So I'm not too concerned about it there for Ayton. And you have such a long track record of what he does when he's on the floor. For the season, he's averaged 1.2 DraftKings points per minute. He's definitely one of the reasons why when we talked about Bam Adebayo, I said that I like Bam a lot, but where he's only center eligible, it'll still be tough to make him, a huge priority even with Butler out, because, like on DraftKings, you have DeAndre Ayton for $500 less, playing just as many, if not more minutes. His season-long rates are basically the same as, or season-long per minute rates are basically the same as Bam's when Butler's out, and you're getting a discount here. So I think that Ayton is, plus he has power forward eligibility on DraftKings. So I do expect him to be one of the guys that's in a ton of my lineups tonight.
All right. Any thoughts on Cameron Johnson with Kelly Oubre once again expected out of the lineup? He's playing a lot of minutes. He's just not there. There's no usage to go around there. Booker and Rubio are initiating the offense. He's not going to touch the ball that often, but he has played 40 and 38 minutes over his last 2 games.
Yeah, I thought his minutes last game were really interesting because 2 games ago there was foul. Like I think Booker was in foul trouble, Ayton was in foul trouble, Saric at one point.
Yeah, Booker fouled out after 31 minutes.
Right, so it was really easy to see how Cam Johnson got 40 minutes there. But a lot of times you see when these young players get a lot of playing time and play well, then they're rewarded, and that's what we saw last game where he got a ton of run. The problem is just what you said though. You can play Cam Johnson all the minutes you want. He's not 36 or 3,700. He's 4,900 on DraftKings. On FanDuel, he's 4,200. So he's definitely more palatable there at small forward. But for the season, he's only averaged 0.75 DraftKings points per minute. He's not taking usage away from Devin Booker. He's not taking usage away from DeAndre Ayton. So there's only so much there. So a really price dependent play. FanDuel, I think he's really interesting. DraftKings, I have virtually no interest.
Any thoughts on Ricky Rubio before we move on to this next game? It's been very odd watching him play because he's getting a lot of opportunity and when he's on the floor, but Rubio is one of the few guys whose minutes actually have been limited since they got back underway.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say was that normally I do have interest in Rubio. I think he's kind of a better fantasy player than a lot of people give him credit for. He's only 6K on FanDuel, so I think even with the potential minute concerns, that's a pretty good price point. On DraftKings, he's 6,600. I think that, like I would just rather go to like Malcolm Brogdon for $200 more, for example.
If Rubio was giving me, if I could rely on him to get similar minutes to Booker, and Ayton, I would have a ton of interest in him here. But
yeah, if you give me the 34 minutes that Ricky Rubio was playing regularly earlier this season, and so I mean, I guess that's why he's at least somewhat interesting. Like if you're talking,
because he could get those,
right? He could get it. There's no reason he can't. But at the same time, they have pretty clearly been giving Payne the backup minutes, and he's getting his 16 to 18 minutes a game.
Yeah, it's just a little bit surprising to me. But it is what I guess.
It does kind of make sense for them to want to see campaign play, I guess.
Sure. We all know they don't have a chance, but like I said, they've not. Here's what I'm wondering, right? They've won all 3 games. They're like 2.5 games out. It's very unlikely that they get there. I don't think any of us expect it to happen, but they are actually in a position now, Adam, where they might. Here's the way I see it, right? If you're Monty Williams, you say, look, we know there's probably no chance, but we're stuck in this bubble. We're 3-0, right? We've won each of our first 3 games. We beat the Clippers. I'm going to keep running my guys out there and see what we can do, because what else are you going to do? You can't go home.
They're like that tournament team when you're a kid, like AAU or whatever, where you're in some tournament where you expect to be outmatched, and then you win your first few games, and it's just like, guys, we're here. Like, we may as well just try and win this.
Exactly right. And you know what? It's a cool story. It'd be awesome. Even if they don't make it, it'd be great if Phoenix went like 6-2 in this. And even the Wizards yesterday, right? Granted, the Sixers, by the way, this should surprise nobody, keep betting teams against the spread when they face the Sixers, because it just is as predictable as anything. They're 0-3 against the spread in the bubble. No surprise. But I watched that game, and all I could think was, I love seeing what Washington's doing here. They know they have no chance, right? They're not technically eliminated, but they have no chance. Maybe yesterday eliminated them. Point being, Adam, Thomas Bryant was fired up. Ish Smith was incredible. These guys are setting picks, trying to run through picks, doing everything they can, playing physical in a game that really meant nothing to them. So it's been cool to see that with a lot of these teams, even though they know they don't have a shot.
Yeah, I think that's, I guess, kind of a benefit of some of the teams being left home. The teams that are here, even if they're not very good, they know they're getting an advantage over other teams if they choose to take advantage of it and play their young guys. So I think that's kind of been good to see. And as far as Phoenix goes, they're only 1.5 games now out of the play-in game against Memphis.
I know.
They're 1.5 back of Portland. They're a half game back of San Antonio and New Orleans.
Yeah, they are 3-0.
And New Orleans is obviously going the wrong direction. They're not even really trying with Zion. So
they did last game though, and they ended up winning. Well, I don't know. Would you consider that trying 25 minutes for Zion? And he had a huge game, and they won.
Sort of. I mean, it's more than they did before.
Memphis is 0-4. They're struggling right now. I'm telling you right now, there will be no play-in game where Memphis has to. I said this before it started. I'm saying it now. Memphis will not have an opportunity to win only one play-in game. If they are there, they'll need to win 2. what I'm saying is there will be another team in the 8th seed when these seeding
and now Jaren Jackson's out too. So
yeah, exactly. Portland, we'll get back on track here, but I just want to get your opinion on this. When we did the NBA 2K sim and we did the 2020 playoffs with Josh and Ben and myself, well, we partnered up with FanDuel for it. Portland went to the finals, and maybe that's going to be willed into existence. Not saying it happens, but I think Portland with Damian Lillard and the way Yusuf Nurkic is playing could be a dangerous team if they make it in.
I wouldn't want to play them.
No.
They're a dangerous team. They have a guy that in any given series can be the best player on the floor, and then they have good players around them too with Nurkic and McCollum. It's not a deep team. It's not a team that is going to be favored, but they're dangerous. It's just like I wouldn't want to play the Wizards as an 8 seed with Bradley Beal because he can go out there and just win you games.
Right. All right, let's keep it going here. Did you want to hit on anything else for the Suns? I think we got to most of it.
No, that's it. I mean, you're getting a lot of minutes for Johnson and Bridges, but Ayton and Booker are the clear priorities.
LA Clippers, Dallas Mavericks. Before we do that, I want to tell you about our sponsor, SuperDraft. If you haven't downloaded it, you go to the App Store or Android, whatever you use for that. Download the app. Or if you're a desktop kind of guy, go to go to superdraft.io and check out what they've got to offer. First of all, the best thing about it is they have contests that are very winnable. Might not be 100K to first, but 2,500, 3,000, 5,000 the first. It's a good chunk of change. And I know a lot of people would be very happy to take that down every day or at least be in contention for it. And you're not going up against 150 lineups either. But it's different than your DraftKings and your FanDuel. It is a multiplier mode. So there's no salaries, right? No salaries, but all multipliers. So, for example, if you get a player like Luka Doncic, and if you want to go follow along, superdraft.io, you can do that yourself. If you look at somebody like Luka Doncic, he's not going to have it's going to be a 1x multiplier, meaning if he scores 70, he gets 70. But if you take somebody like, let me look here. How about Goran Dragic, 1.6 multiplier. That's a crazy number today. If Dragic plays, goes out, gets 28, 29 minutes, has 40 fantasy points, well, then you're getting a huge total from him at 1.6. So while you can play whoever you want, you can play Doncic, Harden, Lillard, Westbrook, all these guys are with 1x multipliers, but it might not be as good as grabbing guys that have 1.6, 1.8, 2 times. The strategy is a lot of fun, and you can use projections for other sites to dictate what you want to do. So check it out. And the best part outside of the fact that they are winnable tournaments is that you get $10 free in Supercash simply by signing up and using the code Awesemo10, AWESEMO10, all one word, when you deposit $10 or more. If you deposit $100 or more, you get $20 in Supercash injected straight into your balance on the site. So download it at SuperDraft or on the app, or check it out at superdraft.io. That is SuperDraft. All right. 2 down, 3 to go. Clippers, Dallas. So the LA Clippers will be without Patrick Beverley. This game is another one I expect to be very close. Clippers 4-point favorites, 228.5 total. I also think you could see this game go over. Now, when it comes to Kawhi Leonard and Paul George, both of them are set to get a decent amount of ownership today. You mentioned that you'd like both of them potentially over Devin Booker. Tell me why.
They're just better. You expect Booker to play more minutes probably, but you do have Kawhi coming off of a 37-minute game last time. George played 36 minutes as well, so that's obviously good to see. And both of those guys just, I think they contribute a little bit more across the board than Booker does. Also, typically it's more valuable to be able to play them at forward than at guard because there's just so many high upside guards every slate. So I think that they're going to be similar to Booker, but I'd give both of them the edge just because I think they produce at a little bit higher level.
Okay. Are you well, let's talk about our guy Ivica Zubac for a minute. Last game, around 25 minutes. Like I said, I think he lost around 3 to foul trouble. Probably would have got up around 27.5, 28 minutes, which I'm okay with. Very efficient shooting, 18 point, 12 rebound game, 5 personal fouls. Not surprising. That has been an issue with him. There's no doubt about that. He sits at 4,800. I really liked him last one. I don't know if this is a day where you need to get to Zubats. I do think we're going to have value looking at Miami and looking at a couple of other spots. But give me your opinion on the front court for the LA Clippers.
Yeah, I mean, I think that Zubats playing, mid-20s makes sense again. Obviously, it's a scary matchup dealing with Porzingis, but I would expect that barring foul trouble, he gets out there again. I agree that you don't really need to go there for the value though. And you have to certainly keep in mind the opportunity cost as well. When you look, for example, you compare him to guys on Miami that are cheap and eligible at guard or forward. It's not costing you, Jokic and Nurkic and Ayton and Bam, and all these Miles Turner, like centers are really deep positions. So you definitely have to keep in mind the value of that position. And it's not just, point per dollar relative to Zubats. So it'll make it really, really tough to get to him. Even though I think, the minutes should be there barring foul trouble.
Yeah. As of now, I don't see it happening. As a matter of fact, this Clippers team is one where I guess Kawhi and Paul George are very viable. I don't know how much I love this Clippers team, though. Like I said, I do expect it to be a relatively high-scoring game, and that's good. They do so much to move this ball around. And Lou Williams is 5,000 on DraftKings. We can talk about that. I don't know what his playing time is going to look like, but you have your Reggie Jackson in there, who was the last man off the bench, Adam, but still played. He still played enough minutes to cut into somebody like Lou. I don't know. Ultimately, I just find this being one of those teams where a few guys are perfectly fine, but I'm not in love with anyone. George 7,800, Kawhi Leonard 8,700, Leonard's 8,600 on FanDuel. So I get it. But I'm just not enamored with anyone here, including Zubats, including Marcus Morris, including Reggie Jackson. But I guess you can break down a little bit more if you'd like what you see this backcourt looking like now that Lou Williams is back, one game under his belt, and Patrick Beverley is back on the bench.
Yeah, so I mean, in the second half against Phoenix, you had Reggie Jackson get the start. He played about 15 minutes in the half. So I still think you're probably looking at around 28 minutes from him. Like Lou Williams was limited, but I think that you can take some minutes away from Shamet before Jackson, most likely. Like in the fourth quarter, Shamet played 8 minutes and 40 seconds. Williams played 5 minutes. I think that 3 minutes and 40 seconds can be taken off of Shamet and given to Williams before you start taking minutes from Jackson. So I still expect around 28 minutes from him. The price tags come up on DraftKings though. On FanDuel, he's 4K, so a much better play on FanDuel than DraftKings. Williams is kind of interesting. He's 4,700 on FanDuel. He's 5K on DraftKings. This is the kind of guy where the range of outcomes is just so wide that it appeals to me. Doc Rivers prior to last game basically said that Williams would be limited by his lungs, that, he had been quarantining. He hadn't been, playing basketball. So he kind of would
play. He never caught the Rona though, right?
No, but he spent 10 days in his hotel room after his wing run.
There's got to be some great wings, man. Go ahead.
They're named after him.
Yeah.
But yes, I mean, he played 21 minutes last game. I don't really see any reason why he couldn't get up to mid-20s here. And we know that he's the third leading scorer on this team, like behind Kawhi and George. The scoring goes through Lou Williams. So, he's certainly the kind of guy where there's a really wide range of outcomes for a player as cheap as he is. Most guys in that price range aren't going to give you that same ceiling. So it does have some appeal. Kawhi and George, I don't think I'd want to play together on this particular slate. It's not something that I mind doing sometimes, but this slate's just so loaded with good plays that I don't really want to allocate, $16,000, $17,000 to two guys that cannibalize each other to some extent here.
Yeah, I'm with you. Let me give you some numbers on Luka. And before anybody says anything, I'm well aware that he's been in a couple OT games, but it honestly doesn't matter. Take a guess what his drives per game are in this bubble.
I have no point of reference on that.
All right. But you know that a lot are like, a lot of drives per game would be like anywhere from 17 to 20.
Right. So knowing that, I was going to guess like 23 since you're asking me.
33.7.
That's insane.
Granted, like I said, I get it overtime, but still 33.7. He's averaging 124 touches per game.
He's averaging an extra 7 touches per 48 minutes compared to the regular season.
It's crazy. It's absolutely now. Like I said, okay, wait, you're factoring in per 48, so
yeah.
Okay, yeah. Now, this has been the Doncic and Porzingis show. Okay, that's it. Doncic has a 36.3% usage rate, 1.69 fantasy points per minute, 51% assist rate, and 16.6% rebound rate. I know it's nuts. But Porzingis has he'd been in some foul trouble, but he's got a 33% usage rate, almost 1.5 fantasy points per minute. Like, these two guys are basically, this is the type of usage and opportunity. Actually, it exceeds what we saw from like Oklahoma City Thunder, Kevin Durant, Russell Westbrook days. You know what I mean? This is a 1-2 punch right now that, and I'm serious when I say this is not hyperbole. You're not going to see this anywhere else in the league. You just won't. There are no other teams right now that have a 1 and 2 like this that are eating up 35% usage each. It's insane what we're getting out of these guys from a production and from a usage standpoint.
Luka's averaging 11 more drives per 48.
That's crazy. That's crazy. You have to. It's not just like 11 more touches. He's driving to the basket 11 more times per 48. It's nuts. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's crazy. He's playing out of his mind, and I think that you don't have obviously over the course of a season or a bigger sample, Giannis is the better producer at the price point per minute, but you don't have any of the minutes concerns with Luka, and he's just doing so much right now that I think he's just a top player.
Absolutely love him. And there's no way his ownership doesn't come up. Right now, we have him projected for less ownership than Giannis Antetokounmpo.
Yeah. Well, the only concern would be that the Clippers clearly have 2 guys they can throw at him that are elite defenders. But, if Doc Rivers decides Luka's not beating us, they can do stuff to take him out of the game.
Yeah, and he's played 2 overtime games in the past 5 days. So, yeah, maybe he's young now. I'm assuming he's fine. The minutes have been through the roof for Luka Doncic. In regulation, he's gone 39, 38, and 37. So big minutes across the board. Ton of opportunity, 20-plus field goal attempts in each. He's averaging in those 3 games about 14 free throw attempts. Just, you name it. 2 triple doubles in 3 games. Everything he's doing is off the charts.
He's played 2 games against the Clippers with George and Kawhi active so far. First one was disappointing with 43.5 DraftKings points. Second one, he played 35 minutes. He went for 36 points, 10 rebounds, 9 assists.
Okay, I'll take it.
Yeah.
I'll take it.
And he only shot 25% from 3.
Crazy. Porzingis, unfortunately, doesn't have power forward eligibility, but Adam, this guy's been stellar as well. He fouled out last game in only 27 minutes. So that has to be kept in mind when we're talking about Porzingis here. And if you're trying to, decipher his minutes in that 4-point win over Sacramento, but he played 8.5 minutes in the first quarter, almost 9 minutes in the second quarter. And in the first quarter, he had 1 personal foul. And then I don't think he got into foul trouble until the second half. Yeah, 3 personal fouls in his first 5 minutes of the third quarter. Then he caught another one, couple minutes into the fourth, and then he got 1.5 minutes into the fourth in his second stint and was removed from that game. So you could have expected to see a lot more opportunity from Porzingis, just like he had been 39 and 37 minutes before that. One was an overtime game. I'd give him around 35 minutes today. He has been operating also with an insane amount of usage, and he's been wildly productive as well. Where are you at on Porzingis today, knowing that it's basically him and Doncic and everybody else is just along for the ride?
Yeah, I really like him a lot for a couple of reasons. You mentioned the minutes that he's been playing. We had seen the rebounding numbers increasing prior to the break also, which is good. And, you have Zubats on the Clippers. There's not really a whole lot else in that front court. They could go small and put George on him, I guess, or Kawhi. But I think that there's also extra upside because if the Clippers do kind of scheme to get the ball out of Luka's hands, it's going to Porzingis. Basically, if the game plan is we're not letting Luka beat us, then it's Porzingis has to beat us is basically the flip of it. So I think that there is an even higher ceiling than usual because there is some percentage chance that the Clippers kind of force him to do a lot of the work.
Any interest in the fantastic, phenomenal Tim Hardaway Jr. here?
Not particularly. I mean, he's playing big minutes, but he's still like a 20% usage guy when he plays with Porzingis and Luka.
17.8% usage in these 3 games. That's what I'm saying. No one else is even close. Like, listen to this. You got Doncic at 36, Porzingis at 33. I'm not including Boban, who's playing like 5 minutes a game. Trey Burke is your next closest at 8 or 19%. Hardaway 17.8. Dorian Finney-Smith 15. Seth Curry 13. Maxi Kleber's at 11%. There's nobody else. There's nobody else getting that run. So. So Tim Hardaway Jr. is on the floor, but that's about it. I like Doncic and Porzingis. Anytime I can get that type of volume, it's minutes and volume, man. Minutes opportunity are more important than anything else. You're right, the matchup's tough, but if they're going to be out there for that much time and just doing what they do, I don't really have any issue doing it. Just knowing that the opportunity, if they don't produce, Adam, at least I know that they had every opportunity to produce while on the floor, and that's all that matters.
Yeah, exactly. You're not worried about someone else taking shots away from them.
Exactly. Anything else on this game?
Yeah, Trey Burke's 3,400, DeLon Wright's 3,700 without Seth Curry. You can't really be confident in either one because Rick Carlisle's rotations are so inconsistent from game to game. If you go back, even when Curry was playing, a few games ago, Curry got in foul trouble. Trey Burke was the direct beneficiary. Then the next game, Trey Burke was barely even in the rotation. DeLon Wright got a bunch of minutes. Antonius Cleveland subbed in before Burke, and then Burke played something like 12 minutes. Then you go to the last game where they announced that Burke's going to start. They decide to start JJ Barea instead. Trey Burke plays 24 minutes off the bench. DeLon Wright's barely in the rotation. Antonius Cleveland subs in ahead of him this time. There's nothing saying that this isn't the game DeLon Wright plays 24 minutes and Burke's barely in the rotation. But Burke is 3,400. If he gets around 24 minutes, he projects as a pretty decent value in the same range as Andre Iguodala. The same goes for DeLon Wright. I obviously wouldn't play them together because I think it's really likely that one plays like 24 and one plays like 16.
Okay. By the way, absolutely forgot that we have NBA coming up or MLB coming up. But we'll keep going here. Portland and Denver. You've got the Portland Trailblazers really looking great. I think we talked about it. I think they're in a spot to excel and they make the playoffs, in my opinion. They've got Dame, you've got McCollum, and then you've got Yusuf Nurkic, who has just been an absolutely dominant force in 3 games. Foul trouble last game, foul trouble first game. But outside of that, Adam, he is, as someone tweeted at us, top 3, clearly a top 3 center in the league. I'm not going that far yet, but I tweeted the other day, he is one of the most versatile and unheralded centers in the game, and I will stand by that all day long.
Yeah, he's very clearly getting the minutes over Whiteside, which is important because this had the potential to be just kind of a nightmare DFS situation if Terry Stotts didn't do what we wanted him to do. But he's very clearly giving the minutes to Nurkic. This isn't a spot now you have him going up against a true center in Jokic. They're very similar in terms of athleticism and everything. So you don't even have the concerns that you did against Houston, where maybe the game goes really small. Even though you and I agreed that wasn't a real big concern, but you don't even have that here. So no reason not to expect another 32 plus minutes as long as Nurkic doesn't get in foul trouble. The salary is getting up. That's the only thing that that makes it tough. Now he's more expensive than Porzingis. He's more expensive than Ayton. There's all these other centers you can play. So it's not like it was a couple slates ago where he was 5,400 and then 6,800, but still has a really high ceiling at almost 9K.
Hey, if you haven't hit that thumbs up yet, it helps us out a ton here to battle that YouTube algorithm. I'm serious, man. The more likes we get, the more it helps us expand our reach and get out to more people. And that's the simplest way you can help us. We do appreciate it greatly. Hit that subscribe button and the notification bell as well, so you always know when new content drops next. When we go live, you get notified. Well, I like that. I just made that up right now. That sounds pretty good, Adam. You didn't hear it, but that's okay.
Absolutely did not.
Just nod your head in agreement. What are your thoughts overall on the Blazers today against Denver in another game? These are going to be some great games, man. I think this is going to be another great one with a lot of fantasy potential, depending on what we get in terms of injuries for Denver.
Yeah, this looks like a really fun slate in general. Some of them have been like every game is kind of just like, yeah, this kind of sucks. This isn't one of those days. Dame, man, like he's so hard to talk about just because from a point per dollar projection standpoint, he's always going to look good, but not great compared to all the other plays on the slate. Like there's so many guys that have similar projections to him that are, $1,000 less, but he's just so capable of taking over a game and going out there and getting you those 60 or 65 fantasy points that when the salary is expensive enough to keep his ownership down, which I'm assuming it is today. Right now we have him at 14% ownership, which is probably a little bit high on DraftKings, but it's not, crazy. I think that he's appealing. It's just, how do you really prioritize him over some of the mid-range or, the cheaper guys that have very, very similar projections?
Okay. Dude, Nurkic is so expensive, but I look at center has so many good like Nurkic at 89, Porzingis at 8,500, Bam at 77 without Butler, maybe without Goran Dragic, Ayton against a poor rebounding center and Miles Turner. I won't go too much further into it, Adam, but you have all of that. And then flip it around and you've got Nikola Jokic, who's averaging 117 touches per game in this restart. He's absolutely dominating the possession game. And that's what you want to see from a big man like him with this type of versatility he has. Center from top to bottom, from mid-range to the top at center is absolutely stacked today. And Jokic is no exception.
Yeah, and I think he's been benefiting from Murray being out. You obviously get more touches, you get more assist opportunities and more usage. But that's also been the story for the entire season, that he just does a lot of everything, and you're getting big minutes from him as well. So, just another great center option against what's not a great Portland defense.
He's averaging 17 rebound chances per game since we got underway. My assumption, I'm looking it up right now, his potential assists are probably like 15 or something, maybe even higher. It wouldn't surprise me. Nikola Jokic potential assists per game are 14.3. I was close. So, I really like him. Do we know, have you seen anything on these Denver players yet? The only thing I've seen is that they were all out yesterday, and now they've got a second of a back-to-back from Jamal Murray to Will Barton to Gary Harris.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen Barton and Harris being ruled out pretty early in, before games, and then Murray's kind of been closer to lock. So my guess is that Murray is like truly questionable. The other two, I'm assuming, don't play.
Okay. Thoughts on this Denver team? Otherwise, Michael Porter Jr.
I wish he would disappear.
His price is getting exceedingly high right now.
But
after two huge,
that's the thing. Like, is it? I really don't know, because let me put it this way. Based on what he was at the start of all of this compared to now, yes. Is it too high? Is it higher than it should be? Probably not. He's actually playing a ton of minutes. His usage is up there. He's rebounding very well, and he's getting a ton of overall chances. So no, in that case, no. Yeah, I think if Mike Malone is committed to playing him and not benching him every time he does something stupid on the defensive end of the floor, then he's not expensive enough, because you're talking 34 to 36 minutes of a guy who's going to go out there and shoot, and he rebounds at a really high rate. If you're still at risk of Mike Malone just constantly benching him, then the risk is really high. But I do think that, you're talking about a young player who they're developing and who's playing really, really well right now. I think that he probably has a relatively long leash at the moment. So I'm more willing to go ahead and give him those mid-30s minutes, which is going to make him look like a really good play.
I think it is. It's crazy to me that we're looking at this price here with with Denver jockeying for playoff position. And here he is, Michael Porter Jr., just putting up huge numbers. And I know earlier in a couple of days ago, you were worried that Michael Porter Jr. might be getting his minutes cut.
I thought if Schroeder had played in the OKC game, I would have been interested to see what happened, because that just would have been a really tough lineup for him to be out there defensively. Without Schroeder, it made sense for him to not have trouble. San Antonio is not a team that should have given him trouble. I'm not too concerned about him here against Portland either. Gary Trent, he can handle. You can kind of just hide him on like Zach Collins, who doesn't do anything offensively, and have Millsap defend Melo potentially. Like there's ways around having him be a problem here as well.
The ball hype was short-lived, I'll tell you that much. Closing out this one, Monty Morris, if Jamal Murray's out, the minutes should be there. Are you interested, and are you interested in anyone else for the Nuggets?
Not overly interested in Morris. I think that there's just a lot of good guard value today. Whether it's Dragic or if Dragic is out, it's none. There's going to be really good guard value for Miami, at least one. So Morris, he gets the minutes if Murray is out, but he's still losing usage to guys like Porter and Millsap and Jokic. I do have interest in going back to some Millsap. He burned me yesterday. Only played 17 minutes, dealt with foul trouble, and then just didn't play in the fourth quarter. But he's not as much risk of losing minutes typically. Yesterday, he did in the fourth, but with Jeremy Grant playing some minutes alongside of him, there's more minutes there, and he is a productive player. So not a priority, but I do think someone that probably goes pretty low on here.
All right. Lakers in Houston, MLB strategy show coming up right after this. Do not go anywhere. We're going to be breaking down a somewhat abbreviated slate here with Josh Engelman and Terry McBride. They'll be handling that. We'll toss it over in just a moment. Houston and the LA Lakers. Adam, take this one away. As of now, you've got the Lakers as 1.5 point favorites, 227 total. Both teams coming off a loss.
Yeah, it should be a good game at least. Houston, obviously, we know that they're going to space the floor. They're going to take a lot of threes. The pricing is pretty favorable on Harden and Westbrook, I think. Harden will be tough because I do prefer Luka. Potentially, I prefer Giannis if we get any sort of indication he's going to play real minutes. Westbrook at 9K, I think, is the better value over Harden, just because they have similar usage rate projections, and they play similar minutes. Westbrook obviously a lot cheaper, so he's my favorite guy from Houston. Covington's priced up a bit. I think it'll be tough to get there, and I'm not too interested in paying the salaries for House or Tucker. Jeff Green center only, so no chance in hell. It's mostly Westbrook, I think, from Houston.
What about the Lakers?
They said so. They say that they're playing their starters on in this back-to-back. I think there's at least some risk that doesn't happen, but
I think they will, and they'll just play like 30 minutes.
Yeah, I'm trying to see what they ended up doing, because yesterday was tough because it was a blowout as well. You got 30 minutes from LeBron, but he missed his final stint in the fourth. You got 29 minutes from Davis. He lost like 4 minutes. It looked like they were probably playing like 32 to 34 if that game had been competitive. So I think that's probably the most likely outcome, is you just don't see them play 37 or 38 minutes, that they kind of play like low 30s. And I think that, on this slate with as many good plays as there are, that's enough to make me not overly interested in them. Maybe a little bit better on FanDuel, since you have more restrictions as far as where you can roster guys. But on DraftKings, where you can kind of just bounce guys around, like I don't want to pay 10-3 for Anthony Davis at the same position. I can pay 7,200 for Ayton. That's just going to be a really tough selling point.
What did JaVale McGee's rotation look like? Did he play into the fourth?
He played 22 minutes.
I know he played 22, but what did his fourth quarter rotation look like in a blowout?
He played 5.5 minutes in the fourth. He subbed out at the same time that Anthony Davis and KCP did, and Kuzma did, with 3.5 minutes to go.
JaVale McGee could be a legitimately good play today.
Yeah, I was curious. So that's the thing, though. Do they? That was a game against Oklahoma City. Now you have this game against Houston. Do they actually run JaVale McGee for 24 to 26 minutes?
It's a great question. You would have to know that he's starting. I would have to know that he's starting.
Even if he starts, though, like why wouldn't the closing lineup in this matchup be like Davis, Kuzma,
Oh, I don't think he'd close. I still think he'd get 22 minutes if he started without Dwight Howard. I hear what you're saying. It's they could easily just throw Davis at the 5. There's no doubt.
Yeah, or Markieff Morris, give more bench minutes to Dion Waiters. I think I'd be really surprised if McGee plays mid-20s here.
Okay.
Like I think there's a really good chance he plays his stints to start the first and the third, and that Morris gets 12 minutes, Waiters gets like 24 minutes, J.R. Smith gets maybe like 14 or something.
If McGee does get 20 minutes in this game at 3,400, he's probably going to annihilate this team on the board. So
that I agree with.
Yeah. So you're right. I don't know, but if he does start, I'd be willing to sprinkle him in a little bit just because he's so cheap. Anything else?
The other thing that scares me there is, for one, I think the minutes are really uncertain, but even if let's say I put him in for 24 minutes and he projects for 27, 28 DraftKings points, that's obviously phenomenal at 3,400, but it does mean that you're probably giving up at least 20 raw points at the center position.
Yeah, it's a deep position. That's a fair point. With no multi-position eligibility. It's a good point. All right. Hey, before we head out, if you haven't checked out Awesemo.com yet, go to Awesemo.com/join. Check out everything we have to offer. If you're new to the channel, welcome. If you'd like to see what we have outside of just YouTube, all of our ownership projections, our player projections, our top stack tool, all of our tools, all of our premium content, all of these tools created by Alex Baker, Awesemo himself, the #1 ranked DFS player in the world. He doesn't just create them. He doesn't just slap his name on them. He uses them to win a ton of money all the time. And you get access to them simply by going to Awesemo.com/join. We just ran through the promo code, but still the monthly package, all access Awesemo Plus from baseball, basketball, hockey, MMA, NASCAR, League of Legends, you name it. We've got everything over there. You need not go anywhere else when it comes to DFS content, because if these sites have contests, we've got all of the content for you. And I'd love to have you come check it out. Come say what's up in the premium Slack chat if you join as well. And hey, follow us on Twitter at Awesemo_com. Follow Adam at ShipMyMoneyDFS for some outrageous comments every day. And if you like to talk about sports on Twitter, follow me at Loughran_D, LOUGHY_D. No, you're an entertaining character, man. I'll give it to you. Anyway, that'll do it for us. We'll be back with you today, live before lock, 3 p.m. Eastern time, leading up to 4 o'clock for this 5-game slate. Stick around. MLB coming up next. Josh Engelman, Terry McBride. Peace.